This video has been produced with the help of students from the University of Birmingham. It highlights some basic employment rights to help make sure you are treated properly at work and get paid what you are owed. If you have any questions or need advice about your employment rights, contact BPC or another agency such as Citizens Advice Bureau, a law centre, or the ACAS helpline. From the first day of work, you have the right to a written document which sets out the main terms of your employment. It's an important document, so if you aren't given your written particulars of employment, then ask for it. Things that should be included in this document include your employer's name, your name, job title or description of the work you'll be doing, your start date, how much and how often you will get paid, hours and days of work, your holiday entitlement, your place of work and any other benefits. Contact BPC if your employer refuses to give you the document or if you have any questions about your written particulars of employment. Most people who work are entitled to get at least a national minimum wage. The rate of national minimum wage that you're entitled to depends on your age. These rates change every April, and you can find the rate you should be getting by visiting the government website. If you receive tips at work, these don't count towards your national minimum wage. They must be paid on top. Your employer cannot count the tips you receive as part of your pay. If your employer expects you to pay for your work uniform or deducts this from your wages, make sure that this does not take you below the national minimum wage. Check also that this deduction is permitted in your contract of employment. If you think you're being paid below the national minimum wage, try having an informal chat with your employer. Ask them how they've worked out your pay. If you're not getting anywhere with your employer, you can contact BPC for advice. Make sure that you get paid the correct amount. Don't let your employer shortchange you. Certain deductions from your wages are allowed by law, such as for national insurance contributions and student loan repayments. Other deductions are allowed if you have agreed to them in your contract or you have agreed in writing before it has been deducted. It's important that you check your employment contract to see if your employer can make any deductions from your wages. You might have been shortchanged if your employer has deducted money from your wages for tips you receive, vouchers given with a fixed value, the cost of training, the cost of your uniform, and the cost of personal protective equipment. If your employer overpays you by mistake, then they are allowed to recover the overpayment from your wages. There are special rules for retail workers. Your employer cannot make any deduction that is more than 10% of your wages for that day for cash shortages or stock shortages. You should be given notice in advance of the total amount that will be deducted. Check with BPC if you don't agree with any deductions your employer has or is going to make. Write to your employer if you think they have not paid you the right amount and try to resolve the issue informally. If that doesn't work, you can use the ACAS early conciliation process, which is the first step in making a claim to the Employment Tribunal. You must contact ACAS within 3 months less a day of the date of the deduction. If there have been a series of deductions, the claim must be brought within 3 months less a day of the date of the last deduction. Contact BPC if you need help in getting the wages you are owed. Workers are entitled to paid holiday, and it doesn't matter how long you've worked for. Any holiday you haven't taken by the time you leave should be paid with your final wage. Holiday not taken when your employment ends is called accrued holiday pay, and if your employer forgets to give it to you, then contact us so we can help. If you're an agency worker, you're still entitled to holiday pay. Make sure after 12 weeks, your holiday entitlement is the same as for permanent workers. You'll need to check when your holiday year starts so you can figure out how much holiday you should get. If you start partway through the leave year, you won't get the same amount of leave as somebody who works for the full year. Check your contract or ask your employer if you're not sure when the leave year starts. If you work 5 days a week for a full year, then you would get at least 28 days paid leave. Part-time workers are entitled to the same amount of leave as a full-time worker in their part-time proportion. So if you work 3 days a week for a full year, then you would get just under 17 days paid leave, which is 3/5 of 28. Your contract might be more generous, so check what it says about holidays. The usual rule is that if you don't take your holiday in the holiday year, you lose it. There are some exceptions when annual leave can be carried forward to the next leave year, such as being ill or your employer doesn't let you take leave. Check with us, as this can be complicated and you shouldn't lose out on what you're entitled to. If you want to take time off for a religious holiday or festival and your employer doesn't let you, then contact us for advice. Don't lose your holiday. Make sure you get the holiday leave and holiday pay you are entitled to. When you leave, don't let the employer keep your accrued holiday pay. Notice is usually needed to lawfully terminate a contract of employment. An exception is where the contract is for a fixed term and simply expires on a certain date or event. There may be circumstances where the failure to give notice is not unlawful, for example when an employee has done something that amounts to gross misconduct. The law says that an employee, once they have worked for a month, is entitled to a week's notice for every complete year worked. You should check what it says in your contract about notice, as it might give you more than the statutory minimum. If you have been dismissed and not been given the correct notice, then contact BPC for advice. Nobody should have to suffer discrimination at work, and the Equality Act provides protection. If you have been treated less favourably or suffered at work because of your age, sex, race, disability, sexual orientation, or one of the other protected characteristics, then seek advice. Discrimination can take many forms and is unacceptable. Contact BPC if you want to discuss in confidence what you've experienced at work. Unfair dismissal is when an employer dismisses an employee without good reason. There are two types of unfair dismissal, ordinary and automatic. To claim ordinary unfair dismissal, you must have been employed by the same employer continuously for 2 years. If you have 2 years of service and you think that your dismissal was unfair, then seek advice straight away. To claim automatic unfair dismissal, there is no continuous 2-year requirement. Automatic unfair dismissal happens when an employee is dismissed for a prohibited reason. There is a long list of reasons that are considered automatically unfair and include but are not limited to the following: whistleblowing, asserting a statutory right, raising health and safety issues, and being a part-time employee. If you have been dismissed for one of these reasons, you may be able to bring a claim for automatic unfair dismissal against your employer in the Employment Tribunal. If you think you have been dismissed unfairly, then get advice straight away, as a claim must be brought within 3 months less a day from the date of dismissal. For advice and assistance with bringing a claim against your employer, you can contact Birmingham People Centre. If you are being investigated or been told that you must go to a disciplinary hearing and you are worried about it, then contact us. We can help you prepare for the hearing and let you know what to expect. You have a right to have a work colleague or a trade union rep with you at a disciplinary hearing. If you are not happy with the outcome of the disciplinary hearing and you wish to appeal the decision, then we can help. If you need more advice on employment law issues, please contact Birmingham People Centre or another agency that provides employment rights advice. This video has been produced with the assistance of students from the University of Birmingham. This information is for general guidance only and is not legal advice. It should not be regarded or relied upon as complete or authoritative statement of the law. BPC is not liable for any loss, damage, or inconvenience arising from using the information provided.